Hey, this is Jim with SportsStream. Thank you for joining us for our latest segment where we have Future Grade, one of our system integrators that does quite a lot in the sports production space, joining us to talk about some of the exciting stuff he's doing in sports studios, mobile studios, and even podcasting, an extension that we're seeing a lot more of in the sports production space. Austin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me. As always, always a pleasure, always a blast to talk to you guys.
It's always a blast to hear about some of the cool stuff that Future Grade is doing. Why don't we start by taking a moment to have you introduce yourself, Future Grade, and the cool stuff that you're doing in the sports production space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Future Grade is known for building cutting edge podcast, broadcast, content studios, basically everything you can use to capture and go, straight to publishing for all sorts of different clients. We've done a ton of work in the sports field, most notably, of course, working with Pat McAfee, Jim Rome, some of these guys that we'll cover, I'm sure, later in the deck. But yeah, a heavy focus on automating the studio control process so that it becomes much easier for someone who's not as tech savvy to get behind there and be able to tell their story and not have to worry too much about all the tech. So that's kind of our focus now. And yeah, again, super excited to be here and talk sports.
And I'm really excited to talk to you because we talk a lot about sports production being the in-venue experience and actually broadcasting the game on the field. But sports production extends well beyond that with the studio setups that happen hours before the game in pre-show content, talk shows throughout the week, podcast studios that are giving vehicles for some of the athletes to talk about what they're doing week in and week out, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think now, depending on how your YouTube algorithm's working for you, you can find an incredible amount of great shows from former athletes that you used to love. And these are guys that, had a huge following on Instagram, or maybe they're retired now and they need to, they have a lot to say and they have a lot of, expert input. And the only thing that separates them from that is this tech, right? And how to bring themselves on air and start their own thing and ultimately monetize this incredible fan base they already have.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of different ways of doing that. One of the experiences that you had was working with ESPN in actually putting together the game day sprinter van that they're using for some of these mobile productions, right?
Yeah, exactly. This one was super cool because, of course, it's a challenge, and we love a challenge. But the fact that College Game Day travels around the country every week, so this Sprinter van, which is a 3-camera Sprinter van, outfitted with Panasonic PTZs, the whole works. I mean, it literally is a mini production studio. It can roll up to any campus, any field, across the U.S. each weekend, and they can bring in guys like Tim Tebow or whoever they want at each destination, and that way they get a rich variety of people they can talk to. So it definitely is one of our favorite builds, and again, it gets a lot of attention too. I think just because of how it looks on the inside, and again, yeah, challenge, but a fun one.
Absolutely. And I don't want to give away all of the secret recipes, but I know our audience is super excited to hear about some of the equipment specifically that goes into a production van like this. So thank you for providing some of that information. Let's run through some of the products on that list.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we pretty much in all of our studios use Netgear. I mean, all of the PoE++ managed switches, it's become a part of our recipe in every rack. We also had the UE100s in this one. Typically, we'd use the UE150 is probably our fallback, but in this smaller space, we didn't need something quite as heavy, quite as robust. So the UE100s worked great. Atomos, I mean, again, that's just something we always use because the bang for the buck is just incredible. and we can run multiple cameras in there. We can capture multiple cameras to a single SSD card. I mean, and yeah, their functionality just continues to grow with what you can do with it. And of course, yeah, as SanDisk, same thing. I mean, if there's any ATEM or any, live mixing machine we're using that allows us to USB in with an SSD, it's typically SanDisk because it just works for us.
That's great. And one of the things you mentioned there is Panasonic with their Pro PTZ camera lineup. They really have a model available at almost every step along the way. So whatever the production needs are, Panasonic does offer a pretty good solution when you are taking into account some of the other considerations like the image sensor that you need, the space available for it, optical zoom. All of these different things can really walk you through that entire lineup. So I know
100%.
Future Grade is known for the system integration and building the stuff not only in the Sprinter van that we talked about, but also in some of these pre-show event studios where the talk shows are actually putting a lot of content out. You mentioned at the opening that you guys were very involved with the Pat McAfee show, right?
Yeah, definitely. We built out the Thunderdome studio for Pat. That was a couple years ago, but of course we continue to support and help them through any changes. 25 4K, UE 150s. Excuse me. Yeah, that was wild, right? I mean, having that many Panasonic cameras, and again, like I think for us, we even use Panasonic products and Lumix products in most of our studios and our smaller fly packs because of Tether.
Yep.
Being able to access the cameras over the network through the Netgear PoE++ switches and having full control over that. It's just that is so essential to what we do for simplifying the workflow that there's no reason for us to use anything else. And there's just nothing else out there yet for us to even look at. But yeah, back to Pat. I mean, a giant studio, literally going from, he was in his old studio. We built it for about 3 months, 4 months, and then no breaks in between. They came right from the old studio right into the new one and went live the next day. So pretty intense, and everything worked. So that's what we're happy about in those scenarios.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the things that everyone sits back and, hopes and prays and tests again. And you want to make sure that everything is up to speed by the time he gets in there. And then tell us a little bit about the Jim Rome studio that you were involved in.
Yeah, always been a fan of Jim since I was a kid. Like what a treat to work with that guy, and how cool is he? I mean, just so nice, so cool to the crew. Exactly, what you see is what you get. And that studio is another, multi-camera, with actual robotic dollies. It's a real deal studio. And yeah, basically helped bring it onto X as their flagship programming for sports. They launched with Jim, and then also he's on CBS Radio simulcasting. So that was an interesting tie-in between working out the different segments of, okay, here's our radio commercial. Now here's our let's keep our regular programming live on X. So we have some interesting tech built in there to manage those different breaks, and how to fall back in time on some of the the line cut itself. So yeah, again, just a really cool studio and a great guy to work with.
And I would imagine with Jim's pedigree as a true broadcaster with sports broadcasting for years and years and years, building a studio for him on a new platform like X had to have certain challenges where you were bridging the traditional broadcast environment that he's used to with some of that new social media broadcasting that the audience is used to viewing on X, right?
Yeah, such a great point, actually. Yeah, a lot of the way that all the audio is configured and routed is very much meant for traditional radio, satellite radio. So bringing that into, our ecosystem was a challenge, and almost to the point where working with some of the engineers that set up his original radio studio, we kind of were speaking different languages there a bit. So yeah, there was some learning on both our behalfs. Obviously, they're just signals. We're routing signals at the end of the day, but different encoding, different decoding. That I think that's one of the reasons we just always rely on the Teradek Prism. It's
Right.
it's just such a robust way to, whether we need to go SRT or just traditional RTMP, like that's in every one of our studios as well, especially for the remote management we can do with it. It's like the Rolls Royce of encoders, I feel like, for this, this type of programming, and now it's in every one of our studios as well. Yeah.
And no, I'm sure. And I think that's a perfect segue into what is one of the newest categories in the sports production space, and that is the podcasting and the podcast studios. What you've done for Jim Rome in getting him on a social media platform like X is really the extension of what athletes, talk show hosts, and just anyone who even has an interest in sports production is doing on some of these podcast studios as well, right?
Totally. Yeah. And to that point, we're starting to see a lot more of this, but in a situation where, with Show Me Something with Sophie and West, they are two traveling professionals, one of which is playing full time for a WNBA team. So, how do we bring that level of professionalism and production value that we, typically have in a studio? And that's to build a portable, all in one traveling studio, which we call a studio node. And we call it the studio node because no matter wherever it goes, it's online and we can manage it remotely, so that if she's in a different city and needs to, record an episode of this podcast, which has been very successful, by the way, she can just open up this, Pelican case all in one studio. Essentially, we can remote in, we can pull focus, we can manage her audio, make sure everything looks good, and then she's off to the races. And then her and West do their podcast, and so far, I guess it's been pretty spicy. They're telling me she keeps getting fined by the she keeps getting fined by the WNBA, which I think the viewers love to see. So that's fun. But yeah, it's such a great proof of concept for us, and especially again Panasonic, Lumix tether. That's how we, remotely manage these cameras and ensure that she looks good, that he looks good. And then live view as well. We have these built into that units as well, so that if we need to, if we don't have local internet, we can cellular bond and still make sure, we have full connectivity. So they could set up in the middle of a cornfield and be good to go, and still pull this show off. So I think we'll be, seeing a lot more of these tools out there with these athletes that have busy schedules and are traveling around, but need that level of professionalism for their content.
And that's what I want to ask you about. If she's a professional WNBA player and a professional podcaster that, whether she chose to be or not, that's kind of exactly where she is right now. She's setting up this production equipment herself with West on the road, and you're accessing it and helping with that production side of it throughout all of this, right?
Yeah, which is so like that's basically proves our concept.
Okay.
The studio node has been successful, but for in this new scenario with this show, they travel so much. The fact that she's able to pop it open and do the few steps of setup required is very encouraging that this can work. She also is extremely smart, to be honest. Like it's I don't want to take anything away from her on that front. She's very Sophie is very tech savvy as well, and figures things out. But we do try to make it as simple as possible. Here are the steps, and now to be able to have a BS1H, or which is now I believe a UB50, or yeah, they changed the name on that one Panasonic wise, but to have
Yep.
that on the road, now you're bringing your studio on the road. So now
Right.
we're maintaining the quality we want. And then, yeah, of course, being able to remote in is the kicker, because there are going to be a few things here or there, white balance, focus, that we do still help with, and it takes a few minutes. So it's really great.
It really is great because it's really enabling her to be able to get the content out there and is elevating her beyond the WNBA sport, establishing the connection directly with the fans. And I think that's why we're seeing more and more athletes go to these podcast platforms, whether it's just as an occasional guest on the show or people like Sophie and West putting together shows of their own to kind of get that constant communications and reach out to their audience. And it's great, I think, that Future Grade helps provide the service that gets them up and running through there. Future Grade is involved in a lot of different aspects of these productions, everything from the Sprinter van for the mobile production to the studios like we talked about with Pat McAfee and Jim Rome, and of course these podcast studios that we just talked about as well. Tell us a little bit more about where you fit into the equation and what you offer to people that are looking to get into sports production.
Yeah, so at this point, because a lot of our new clients, they aren't as familiar with you know every step it takes to get your own studio, channel, publishing, even marketing, set up. So we really act as a consultant from the beginning to help people with the unknowns. So it goes beyond technical. We have an awesome project management team and dedicated producers that help with every product, that are there 24/7 for our clients, and that helps them solve a lot of the questions of, where do I need to focus on? What type of, should we be shooting in 9 by 16, 16 by 9? Are we publishing to Instagram or YouTube or both? There's a lot of these questions, including, managing media. How should we manage our media? Do we dump cards or do we capture straight to a cloud server? So this is something that we help them with initially, so that the vision becomes clear. And then for us, the technical part is pretty easy at this point. So I think that's something, as an advantage that we do offer, is really, you know, a lot of these clients aren't coming from a broadcast world where they've been spent time in a studio, or spent time, perfecting these workflows. So we're there as, someone who provides education as well as the end solutions of, the technical integration. And now we also do a lot of fabrication and actual development and building out of these sets so that they look cool and they represent their brand and their vision. So that's something new we're doing a lot, and we actually have a new sports studio coming out here very soon that we've been building this summer. So look forward for everybody to see that as well.
You're going to have to find some more stuff to do in all of your free time.
Right, right. Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
One of the things you mentioned that has been a recurring theme in a lot of the different segments we talked about this week is how sports production is using the technology as a tool for the message itself, whether it's the game on the field, the talk show, the pregame, the postgame, the relationship with the fans. Those are all things that the technology is just really allowing us to put out into the world. Content and the story is still the king, and athletes know that they are part of that story. I'd say all the time that sports is the ultimate reality TV show. You tune in to every single game, every single week, and you never quite know which way it's going to go, how it's going to end, or what kind of drama is going to pop up. And when you can build a studio like the ones Future Grade is building to help share that content and share that message, it's going to be received that much better because it's going to look great also. So, Austin, thank you to you and your team for all the great stuff you're doing.
Hey, well, thanks so much to Broadfield for providing the best gear and being the easiest to work with. And sometimes we have last minute requests and we, are looking for this or that. And you guys always accommodate, and I can't thank you enough. So thanks for having me, and thanks for all the great work you guys do over there.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for joining us for this segment. Stay tuned for more from Sports Stream.